Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 57 of the Rock Podcast. For those about a pod, we salute you. In this episode, we've reached the letter K in the A to Z of rock. Are you excited, Bri? I think
Extremely.
you are. I know you are. There's rock news. There's new rock on the block. And of course, there's everyone's favourite feature, Hidden Gem Time. But without further ado, here he is, the man with a PhD in all things King's X. Here's Brian.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm okay. Thank you for that lovely build-up. A PhD in King's X. However, my Spotify Wrapped doesn't agree with that.
For the benefit of everyone who doesn't know what what's it called, a Spotify Wrapped?
Yes.
What's that all about?
So basically, this is where when you listen to material, when you listen to all of your artists over a year, Spotify send you they send you a report at the end of the year to tell you how much music you've listened to, how many genres, and then it gives you a little list and a little playlist of all your favourite songs, all your favourite artists that you've listened to throughout 2023. And you would have always, I think they've been doing this since 2017, Matt, and you could pretty much name mine off. It's usually my top 5 artists are usually somewhere in between John Mayer, King's X, Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, Deep Purple.
Yeah.
This year, my top artist is Mr. Bryan Adams, followed by Mr. David of Coverdale with Whitesnake, and King's X are not in my top 5 artists at all, or John Mayer. So I'm going to go for recount.
I would, if I were you. I did 2, actually. I did an Amazon Music one. Interestingly, I got 2. Well, Amazon Music, my top artist is Rush, which I think is reasonable. Yeah. And on Spotify, my top artist is the mighty Iron Maiden.
Yes.
But, anyway, so, yeah, I mean, that's great. I don't know what it tells us, particularly apart from the fact we listen to a lot of music. Yeah, interesting. So I haven't spoke to you since we spoke to lovely Chris Sumby. He was very entertaining, wasn't he? Nice guy.
He was indeed. And as of yet, we've no idea who's going to be the headliner for Stone Dead.
It was quite interesting, some of the fantasy bands that he wanted to have on the bill. For example, Nightwish.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's good. Because I would always have Diamond Head headlining any festival, whether it be the one in my back garden or something the size of Stone Dead. But no, it's very entertaining.
We love Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth and the Van Halen Van Hagar activities, and obviously Michael Anthony and Sammy Hagar have announced that they're going to go out next year for a best of both worlds world tour. Mm-hmm. I'm saying hopefully, with Joe Satriani sitting in on guitar and the wonderful Jason Bonham on drums. So, and they played the Howard Stern show recently, and they were doing doing some Van Halen material, and I think the tour next year will be predominantly Van Halen deep cuts with some Sammy solo material.
Yes, but on the subject of that, so I mean, it's a great idea, and it's kind of 3/4 of Chickenfoot, who are a great band.
Yeah,
who we saw, didn't we, back in that 2011 or something?
Yeah.
Plus Jason Bonham, of course, who's I think is he with Sammy Hagar's
He
Circle?
plays in the Circle. Yeah, he's a drummer in the Circle.
So it sort of makes sense. And of course, Chickenfoot had a couple of drummers in there. They had your man from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Your man, Chad.
Your man, Chad Smith. And was it Mark Nelsif they had?
No, you're very close.
Was it they had?
You're very close. Kenny Aronoff.
Kenny Aronoff. I knew it was someone with an exotic name. So it doesn't surprise me that neither of them can make this
Yeah.
this reimagining, and of the Van Halen songs. And of course, no one better than the amazing Joe Satriani to
Yeah.
take on those amazing songs.
Yeah.
But what I thought was an interesting kind of footnote to all this was Sammy Hagar. And I saw this unfold. It was hilarious. Sammy Hagar said, "Yeah, it'd be great to have David Lee Roth and Alex, come on tour with us." And then immediately David Lee Roth's like, "Yeah, I'm up for it. Brilliant." And then almost the next day, it was like 5 minutes later, Sammy Hagar's like, "No, not the whole tour, just a gig or maybe a song within a gig."
Yes.
And maybe a slightly different with Alex. He was very disparaging of as he's got every, he doesn't really care, does he, Sammy? I mean, he was very disparaging with David Lee Roth, saying he could come along to the odd show, but he doesn't want to tour with them again. I think they probably had a few ups and downs before.
They tried touring. It was very short-lived, and I think it's one of these situations where it all starts off very well. The nice press conference, and we're all going to play nice, and then at the end, didn't end well.
No, as you said, and I quote, "I know better than to have him on tour again. Been there, done that."
Yes.
So clearly, no particular love lost, but a couple of gigs would be nice. Yeah. And they're no doubt going to play in Britain, and no doubt going to play one gig, and that'll be in London, and I'll be there. Happy days. So, in the same vein with band members coming and going, Mike Mangini has left Dream Theater, and Mike Portnoy has rejoined, which is interesting, isn't it? The ubiquitous Mike Portnoy. What do you make of that, Brian?
I was not surprised in the least.
Really?
Not surprised in the least. After, I can remember when we were watching the Winery Dogs, and I thought the guys individually played very, very well, but it didn't feel cohesive for me as a band. And I just thought, I think the Winery Dogs have ran their course.
Yeah.
And whenever John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy kind of reconnected during lockdown, he recorded on his album. Then when John Petrucci went out on tour, Mike Portnoy was drumming. Then there's another project called Liquid LTE, the Liquid Tension Experiment, or with Jordan Rudish, who's the keyboard player. So there was a lot of reconnecting with Mike Portnoy with the Dream Theater guys. So I wasn't.
Every time we mention Mike Portnoy, I have to play my Mike Portnoy drum fill.
Yes, 51 toms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And 48 floor toms. Do you know what it reminded me of? When you guys, when someone leaves a band, you always get a sense if there's someone really kind of prominent within the band, and he's the drummer. I mean, he's not even the guitarist or the front man or anything like that. But you always get a sense that they'll be back. But like Bruce Dickinson when he left Iron Maiden, you felt that Blaze Bayley was kind of, just kind of keeping the seat warm. Similarly with Tim Owen and Rob Halford in Judas Priest. We've touched on that many times.
Yeah.
Ripper Owens. And this was very similar. I think it was 2011-12 that Mike Portnoy left.
That's right. Yeah.
And in came Mike Mangini or Mangini, however you pronounce it. And here he is. But Mike Mangini was very kind of, kind of humble and very kind of, almost philosophical about it, wasn't he? The fact, okay, end of an era for me. I was only really keeping the thing going and, all that kind of stuff. I suppose just, good on him.
I think they did it really. They did it very, it was a very grown up, as you say, I think Mike Mangini was very gracious. He effectively said he was keeping, Mike Portnoy's coming. I think the theme of it is Mike Portnoy's coming home, and so it was very, very, very gracious, and yeah, I thought well done, and I suppose early next year, Dream Theater will be getting back in the studio, new album, and of course, a potential headliner for Stone Dead.
Well, of course, it does kind of bring their stock up a little bit, doesn't it? Because it probably takes them from, I don't know, dare I say, I don't know, a Hammersmith Odeon type venue to maybe a Wembley Arena type venue, just because of the reintroduction of the great Mike Portnoy. Talking of bands kind of bringing members back together, hot off the press. So Geddy Lee, as we touched upon it, is doing this sort of spoken word sort of tour globally. I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks, actually. I mentioned that. Christmas present from my wife. And during the course of the spoken word shows, performances, there's a Q&A session. And clearly someone has said, or people have said many times, not only are Rush coming back, but probably diluted a little bit. Are you going to be recording with Alex Lifeson? And it appears that Geddy and Alex, 2/3 of Rush, may well be getting back together to make some music, either as Rush, unless I'm reading too much into it, or sort of as a new kind of entity, which is I can tell you as a Rush fan is very exciting. Even though Geddy's voice is not what it was in 1977, of course. But even so, it's very exciting, just the prospect of new music from those two. And who knows how that will play out. Any thoughts on that, Brian?
It will be interesting lyrically, how it works, because obviously Neil Peart was the main contributor lyrically to what Rush have done for many, many years. So I think Alex and Geddy have always... musically have gelled, so yes, it will be interesting what they do, and I think Geddy's interested in very much writing music with as the pair of them, but I like the way he's kind of trying to dampen down the expectations of we'll do an album and then we'll go out and do a 3-year global world tour. So I think it's early days, but again, Alex was out last recently with in Toronto, and he was playing with Tool. And Danny Carey obviously was one of the drummers who played at the Taylor Hawkins tribute. So everybody's now, the odds have shortened now that I think it's now between Danny Carey from Tool on drums, or Matt Cameron from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, because he played on Geddy's solo album. So let the conjecture happen, but good luck to them,
Yeah, nice bit of detective work there, Brian, because I thought exactly the same. I was listening to so bang goes my hidden gem for this week. I was listening to My Favourite Headache recently, which is Geddy's solo album from I think 2001, and as you say, Matt Cameron from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden at the time plays on it. So I mean, as we know, it's going to be a queue a mile long and some of I'll play, I'll drop everything and play, It could be someone out of the blue, of course. A bit like when Josh Freese joined Foo Fighters. We're all talking about Rufus Taylor and others who kind of kicked around, and ended up being Josh, who's, with all due respect, maybe slightly unknown. So we'll see. It could be Danny Carey, it could be Mike Portnoy, could be Dave Grohl, could be Chad Smith, could be you.
But I just have a wee feeling that somebody interesting like Brad Wilk, who's available, could play with Geddy.
Yeah,
and Alex.
You might be right. I mean, we called it with Brian Tatler and Saxon, of course. Well, I mean, I say we, I called it. So I'll be right, Brian. We'll put a pin in that one, as they
Exactly.
say, and who knows? Talking about Black Sabbath. Now, I love this story. Talk about creating publicity out of thin air, which I guess is Sharon Osbourne's kind of, her forte. So there's two things that have come up recently. So Ozzy allegedly is annoyed with Geezer Butler, not Tony Iommi, but Geezer Butler, the great Geezer Butler, the bass player of Black Sabbath. And if you haven't read his book, it's fantastic. By the way, we did that as a book club of rock, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
But apparently, Ozzy is annoyed that Geezer didn't reach out to him when Ozzy was. I mean, he's still not well, and he's still got a few issues and ailments and everything. That Geezer hasn't reached out to him, and kind of put a sort of virtual arm around him, I suppose, and which I think is a little bit childish, really. And Geezer said, "Well, I tried. I did. Honestly, I tried, but there's no response. Well, he's got the wrong email address or wrong phone number or whatever." And he said, "But I held him in my thoughts," which I think is nice.
Yeah.
That's just as good, really. I think that's just cool. I might sort of, say it to my wife. I didn't get you a Christmas present, but I had it in my thoughts to buy you a Christmas present and see how that goes down. But obviously, this is a different scenario. But I mean, talk about petty. And then adding to that, Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy's wife, is now annoyed. This is a news item. She's annoyed that there's paparazzi taking pictures of Ozzy in his frail state. Well, okay, yeah, I'm sorry about that, Sharon, but I mean, there's going to be obviously the odd person taking pictures, but it's. I saw these two stories. I thought, well, they're literally stories out of thin air, just created out of the ether, just to kind of get Ozzy's name back out there and Sharon's name and so on. Am I being a bit cynical, Brian?
No, you're not being cynical at all. And I have to say, there is something to be said for maintaining the mystique of a rock band. You look in the 70s, Black Sabbath, their music, you didn't know about what Bill Ward, there's so much history and, my goodness, Spinal Tap's, a lot of the stories around the Spinal Tap come out from Black Sabbath. The Black Sabbath's story is legend, and it's going to end up with old men not speaking to each other, emailing each other's wives because they're not talking to each other. It's just, we're just into farce, really. Which is a real shame.
But it's fun to watch it unfold.
Oh my goodness.
Talking of Tony Iommi, by the way, there's a new TV show. I don't know whether anyone's seen it. I very much recommend it. The great Tony Iommi was on the first episode. The great guitar riffs. It's on Sky Arts.
That's right. Yeah.
Andy Summers was on it, and Nancy Wilson. It's well worth a watch, by the way. I'm giving that one for free. It's not even a hidden gem. I'm just giving it some free publicity. Anyway, where were we? AC/DC news, Brian.
Yes.
So, AC/DC, as you know, played the inaugural Power Up Festival. I think it was last month or month before, whatever it was, a few weeks ago, and it went down really well, as we know, which is great. And there's all sorts of chit chat about will they, as we talked about, will they play Hyde Park, or will they play, a tour? Will they do this? Will they do that? Well, apparently the proverbial cat is out of the bag in Germany, in Munich to be precise. Dieter Reiter, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the mayor of Munich, has basically told the world that, very specifically actually, AC/DC will be playing the Olympic Stadium in Munich on the 12th of June next year, which is nice. And then when he was told, no, you shouldn't have said that, He said, "Oh, I didn't know it was supposed to be a secret." And that, I mean, I thought, well, fair enough. I mean, unless someone tells you, for God's sake, don't mention it to anyone. We're telling you as the mayor of Munich because it's coming next year, and you might have to be there in your finery. But
he might be smart, the mayor, by if he's leaked it now, and they try to withdraw it from Munich. In some ways it's kind of going, right, 12th of June 2024, put it in your diary because AC/DC have to come to Munich now because... So, Matt, we have some new Rock on the Block, new releases.
Yes.
Let's see if we've got any latecomers for our album of the year, which we will be discussing on our best of show coming up soon.
Yeah.
And we will kick off with the second album from a band that you introduced me to, which is...
You're welcome.
Thank you. Which is Dirty Honey's second album, which is Can't Find the Brakes. What did you think of it?
Well, I mean, I thought it was great. I loved it. If you're going to put me on the spot, no, I did enjoy it. It's very similar to the first album. There's a little bit more light and shade on this one.
Yeah.
From the Californian quartet, that is Dirty Honey. I wrote some notes about it actually. There's so much swagger on it. The swagger coming out of every pore on this.
Stonesy swagger.
Well, it's got Stonesy swagger. I wrote down AC/DC meets Aerosmith meets Black Crowes. Put it in a blender with a bit of Stones sprinkled on the top, maybe a bit of Stones seasoning, and also the singer whose name escapes me. His lower register reminds me of Jeff Buckley. Listen again. Mm-hmm. Certainly, the title song. Don't put out the fire. There's almost a Jeff Buckley feel when he sings lower register, and he goes into kind of full on, full voice Bon Scott, Steven Tyler. But yeah, I thought it was great. But it was, it's kind of more of the same, really. If you've got the first album, it's very similar. It's good. I love the first album from, I think, was it 21 or 22? Saw them a couple of times. Really good live. You get a chance to see them. They're out early next year. I'm going to see them in London, naturally.
7th of Feb. Yeah, the tour runs from the 7th of Feb, where they open up in Glasgow, all the way through to March, where they finish up in Bilbao. So they're in Europe for knockings of 2 months.
Yeah. It's great. I loved it. I mean, the songs are, they've got an Aerosmith sort of twang to them, and they're Aerosmith tinged. I think we talked about it when Can't Find the Brakes, the song, came out, or was it Don't Put Out the Fire? But they're riffs. They're not chord-driven riffs. They're kind of note-driven riffs, classic kind of Steve Perry style. I mean, just. And for a 4-piece, they make a great noise. And so they got some light and shade. Rome is a really cool, kind of quieter song. Very much, for your Sunday morning rock playlist. Copyrighted, that, by the way. Sunday morning rock. Get a Little High is a cool song. I mean, it's just so many cool songs in this album. I loved it. It's certainly, as you say, it's a contender for album of the year, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And they're going to be huge. Uh-huh. They're playing the Electric Ballroom in London, which is a step up from, where did I see them? Oh, they were supporting Rival Sons. I saw them in Norwich, actually, a tiny little place. So they're obviously on the rise, and rightly so. They're a great band, and I love this album. I thought it was really good, really nice vibe, really nice groove to it. Which, however, that brings us to I've got to stop ranting about how much I like the album. However, that brings us to, well, we talked about this album quite a lot over the months, because Dolly Parton, the lovely Dolly Parton, was very much in the press, putting together various luminaries from the world of rock. to be a part of this album, and wow, has she done it? There are some massive names on this album. They're weighing in at 30 songs, 2 hours and 22 minutes. I mean, it's like the Titanic of albums. I mean, it's just huge. Some sort of original songs as well as covers, shall we say. What did you make of this, Brian?
Oh, I knew.
Rockstar. You go first. Rockstar by Dolly Parton.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, Matt. Boy, did I pull the short straw by letting you go with Dirty Honey first, and then me with Dolly Parton. Anyway,
you're welcome.
Thank you. So, this is Dolly Parton's 49th solo album.
Jeez,
it's her 49th solo album, and as you quite rightly say, she got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then she pledged to make a rock album. And what's really nice was when you're listening to the album and you think of I think this is how lovely a person she is. Most of the people who were also inducted that year in 2022, so Duran Duran were inducted, Neil Giraldo and Pat Benatar were inducted. So what she's and Judas Priest. So what's really interesting when you listen to the album and you go, why Simon Le Bon? She actually has invited quite a lot of her fellow inductees from that year to be on the album. So this is an album of I'm not going to say two halves because it's, as you say, it's 37 tracks and it's encyclopedia. This to me, there was whenever I listened to all of these tracks, Matt, the first word that came into my mind was Dolly-oki.
Yes,
Dolly-oki was
big time.
Dolly-oki, and where the album, I actually think all of the original tracks. So if you look at the tracks that she wrote with her producer for the album, the album opens up with the track Rockstar.
Yep.
Which and then you follow it on with The World's on Fire. Again, another original track. And I kept whenever she was singing about World's on Fire, I was just thinking Pants on Fire. I was making up lyrics, but of all of the original songs that she'd written, I actually think there was enough original material to actually put out without the covers. So and I also thought the collaborators that she had on the original songs, like Either Or, which had Kid Rock on, there was there was just a lovely blend between Kid Rock singing and Dolly singing. Yeah. I Want You Back, Steven Tyler again, and even Bygones with Rob Halford. I thought all of the original material, it really felt like a duet, even the Simon Le Bon. When you then look at effectively some of the greatest songs ever written in the world, you hear the keyboards and the beautiful piano for Open Arms with Steve Perry. Like, she got Steve Perry to record, and you're sort of sitting there going, Dolly starts singing, the opening verse of Open Arms. Then the second verse starts, and I'm going, where's Steve Perry? Steve,
where are you?
Yeah, Steve Perry gets like a line and a half, and then it seems to be with the collaborators, be it Sting or Kevin Cronin, all these great singers, they seem to be stuck singing a harmony below where they're usually singing it. And it's all processed, and it just feels like everybody was auto-tuned, and it was and the like Sting, they did Every Breath You Take, and I was like going, oh my goodness. And then so for me, I think it would have been a really good album, just all of the original materials. Maybe there's one or two of the covers that really work for me, Matt. Like, I think the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction with Pink is fabulous, and the Joan Jett, I Hate Myself for Loving You, those are brilliant. All of the rest of them are kind of going, I'm sorry, but Freebird, she changed. It just sounded like Boyzone. It was like they used. It sounded so much like Leonard Skinner at the start, and I love Freebird as a song. And then when she sings, it comes in a different key. Then Skinner do it in their normal key, and then she sings in normal key. Some of the songs just didn't work for me. Let It Be with McCartney. Just let it alone. You know.
Yeah.
That's where I come with it, Matt.
You know, God bless her. She's promoting rock music. The collaborations are well intended, if they don't always kind of come out as well as you would hope. So, you know, I don't know whether there'll be a follow up to this. I doubt it. She's just pretty much used up all her contacts, I imagine, from the world of rock. But yeah, not my album of the year, but well worth a listen, boys and girls, just out of curiosity, I think, more than anything.
Absolutely.
So that was New Rock on the Block, Bri. So, Bri, you're a very excited boy, I can tell. It's nearly Christmas, and this, in a way, is my Christmas present to you, which saves me buying something and sending it to you. We have reached K in the A to Z of rock.
And you tell me that after I've bought your present.
All right. Okay, maybe it's not your real present. Anyway, so K, and you know what that means.
It's King's X time!
Yay!
There you go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was K. That was the A to Z of rock, and it was K, and it's King's X. End of.
On a serious note, now you love King's X, and they are a great band.
They are.
For those who don't know, the uninitiated, just give everyone a 2-minute history of King's X, their greatest songs, their greatest albums. Go.
Okay, so King's X have released loads and loads of albums. I'll do the short version, but they're always they were always in magazines which begin with K, but we'll talk about later. They were always the darlings of the underground, and they seem to have now been relegated to the one of the bands that should have been huge.
Yes.
King's X should have been great. Critical. Yeah, so King's X came out 1987. Oh my goodness, the 3 albums that came out when Out of the Silent Planet, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, and Faith, Hope, Love are probably 3 great, the 3 good albums. Then you had Dogman with Brendan O'Brien producing it. King's X for a lot of artists, quite influential around grunge. The guys in Pearl Jam, I would say that they're heavily influenced. The best way I would describe King's X to anybody who hasn't had the chance to listen to them, they're a 3-piece who can do fabulous harmony vocals with a very grungy, Hendrixy groove to them. So it's kind of like Jimi Hendrix with Beatle harmonies. Great songwriters. For many, many years, they split the vocals. You know, Doug Pinnock, the bass player and the singer, Jerry Gaskell, the drummer, and Ty Tabor, who's a guitar player and singer. They all sang and they all split it. And for many years, then Doug Pinnock, who's the bass player and singer, did most of the singing. And on their recent album, 3 Sides of One, they've kind of gone back to their old formula where all 3 of them are singing. King's X, yeah, they're an excellent band. End of, Matt. Thank you for indulging me again.
No, you're very welcome. What I love is the fact that they are, as you say, they're not globally well known. But they're and you love them. I mean, I know this. I mean, from like the first time we met 20 some odd years ago, that was your number one band, and I've seen them thanks to you. And I've never been to a gig like it. I've said this many times. We saw them in Islington, of all places, in London, literally across the road from where my daughter Georgia now lives, actually. And I've been to Maiden gigs and AC/DC and all the rest of it over the years, but I've never been to a gig where the audience is so partisan and so kind of at one, without being too cheesy, at one with the band, as they said in Spinal Tap. But they are an amazing band. They've done some great songs. We'll stick a ton of King's X songs on the playlist for everyone to enjoy, and check out those 3 albums because they are great albums, as you mentioned. I'm going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. Kiss. 50 years old this year, and obviously on their farewell tour. Formed in 1973 in New York City. Originally, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, Chaim Weiss and Stanley Eisen, to give them their real names, were in a band called Wicked Lester. I'm not sure whether they would have had global kind of sort of stardom with a name like Wicked Lester, but not a bad name after all. But I mean, what can you say about Kiss? I mean, just huge. The makeup, the pyrotechnics, the good songs too. I mean, great songs. Rock and Roll All Night, Detroit Rock City, Crazy Crazy Nights. You name it. I mean, a long list of mega rock songs, and of course merchandise and branded stuff. And famously, Dimebag Darrell from Pantera's buried in a Kiss coffin. I mean, anything goes in the world of Kiss. But well worth a mention, of course, the mighty Kiss. Coming to the end of the road. You've seen them, I've seen them. And if you haven't seen them, you probably missed out because they're amazing. Amazing spectacle.
Or have you, Matthew? Have you missed out?
Well, who knows? I know there's quite a lot of people have been disappointed recently. They cancelled a couple of gigs in Canada. They cancelled a gig, I think, in Dubai. A friend of mine in Dubai missed out seeing them. He was really excited, but they cancelled. So, they cancelled because of the issues in Israel, and being essentially a couple of guys are Jewish, they felt there might be some issues with them, being kind of front and center in Dubai, which is possibly overly cautious, but better to be safe than sorry. But you may see them again. Who knows? It might be one of those farewell tours that never ends. What else you got for us in the K's, Bri?
A band who I think would have made it on the list anyway, Matt, but it's probably a little bit more poignant for this episode, was Killing Joke. Killing Joke. I don't know them particularly well, apart from one absolute banging tune in the 80s. I think it's one of the best goth rock songs of all time, which is Love Like Blood. That goes on to the playlist. So Killing Joke, there's an amazing documentary about Killing Joke and just their whole career. You can get it on Amazon Prime. If you search for Killing Joke, it just goes through their whole history. Jazz Coleman is kind of mad genius. He composes operas and symphonies. But Geordie Walker, who was the guitar player, passed away recently. Quite an influential guitar player. He played a massive Gibson ES 295, Matt. He was one of the that was his. It was a gold guitar. I loved it. It's one of those guitars which is iconic, and Geordie had such a trademark. I could always tell when it was Geordie playing guitar. So, Killing Joke, one of those most influential. What sort of genre would you call Killing Joke?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I was thinking about this. I mean, you're right. They kind of got bracketed with the goth movement, but sort of post-punk, industrial, sort of, I don't know, alternative rock. And you just say, when you talk about influential, allegedly, Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue, the riff is essentially kind of slightly stolen from the aforementioned Love Like Blood.
I get that. I can hear that.
I'll put them side by side on the playlist, and you listeners can decide. But there's nothing wrong with being influenced and so on. But sad loss of Geordie Walker of Killing Joke. I'm going to mention a few albums and songs. Kaylee by Marillion. Came out about 1985, 86 when Marillion were at their peak. Everyone knows that song. I think it was a hit on the chart, certainly in Britain. And I've always wondered, whenever I come across somebody called Kaylee, whether they were born in 86 or 87, that era, and their parents thought, well, that's a good name, we'll have that. So Kaylee by Marillion. I'm also going to go with Killers by Iron Maiden. The 1982, their second album, actually. Funny enough, talking about second albums, the last album to feature Paul Di'Anno, which is a great album. We'll stick a bunch of songs from the Killers album on, but any excuse to put some Maiden on the playlist, of course. The Kinks, Brian.
Yes.
Essentially invented heavy rock when Dave Davis, and that's featured on that Great Riffs program, actually, he decided that he wanted a more punchy sound from his amp, so he literally slashed the cone with a razor blade and got a more distorted sound. Played "You Really Got Me" in 1964, and well, the rest is history. I mean, a classic song covered by, well, pretty much every pub cover band ever, and pretty most importantly by Van Halen on their debut album. But the Kinks, Brian, from Muswell Hill, near where I was born, near where we were born,
Exactly.
actually.
Yeah.
In North London. There you go. Come full circle. What else you got for us, Brian?
Well, it's funny you talk about names like Kaylee, and Kaylee actually got to number 2 in the charts.
Oh, okay.
It nearly went.
Wow.
Yeah, 19. It was released in 1985. And just held off the number 1 spot. So it got me thinking. You said Kaylee and people. Another one beginning with K, which was a big single for me, with a little bit more on the softer rock side, would have been Mr. Mister's Kyrie.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is a
Kyrie lays on the road.
And who knows the lyrics for that one? We have no idea.
Not me. Off of the album, what's it called? The album?
Welcome to the Real World.
It's a great album, that is. That's another hidden gem of mine gone for today. Thank you. Cross through that.
Now, we have to talk about, for me, Matthew, and I'm sure it was the same for you, we have to talk about the encyclopedia which we devoured weekly. Which was the wonderful tome that was Kerrang!
Kerrang! Magazine.
Kerrang! Yes. Magazine, which came out from Sounds Magazine, and Kerrang! I think Kerrang! Started around, the early 80s, 1980?
81. I remember it coming out, actually. I bought the first, I don't know, 50 issues.
Wow.
Yeah, the first one featuring Angus Young on the front, appropriately enough, came out in June 1981.
Wow.
You were just starting your 15 years at university then, I imagine.
I don't even think I had a rock album in 1981, Matt.
It was originally, it was a kind of offshoot from Sounds Magazine, which was kind of a mixture, but of sort of punk and ska and rock and everything. Kerrang! Was solely dedicated to what, basically heavy rock, heavy metal. I think it originally came out as a kind of monthly thing, and then it became fortnightly, and then ironically it's gone back to, I think it's quarterly now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's still going, but it's, as I say, it's not quite as frequent as it was in its heyday. But you're right. I mean, it was essential reading, wasn't it? Back in the day.
Absolutely, and people that you and I still see at festivals, and they always, people that were in Kerrang! Turn up in all of the documentaries about hard rock. So you would have had Jeff Parton, who was famously the editor, Malcolm Dome, sadly passed away, R.I.P. Crusher. Dave Ling,
of course, yeah. All these London kind of inner circle.
Yeah,
you still see Dave Ling dotting around London.
Yeah, Xavier Russell.
Yes, exactly. Our friend Trevor Streets, hello Trev, if you're listening in France, he unearthed the first, I think, three issues of Kerrang! Magazine in his mum's garage when he was clearing out the garage one time. And he won't part with them. I've tried many times to try and get him to part with them, but he won't, because I think they're worth probably the princely sum of £25 each. Those original in mint condition.
Yeah.
Kerrang magazines,
Yeah.
and of course the K rating.
Uh-huh.
It was the only band to get 5 Ks, Brian. You've told me many times.
Oh no, there were a few bands got 5. They actually created for the band Only Child. God, you're testing me.
Right.
And instead of 5Ks, they gave them an L. It was an L that Only Child album got, and it was like the Matrix is broken. You had. And then, do you remember when you had the reviews in Kerrang of the of a show, and you would have, it was basically done on a heartbeat. So you would have I remember saying, the Almighty were playing the marquee, or Aerosmith were doing their secret gig at the marquee before they played special guests at Donington, and you'd have it's like off the scale for the there's so many things that Kerrang was just amazing.
Yeah, lovely stuff. All right, we've got to move on. Other notable mentions: Simon Kirke, the great Simon Kirke, drummer from Free and Bad Company. Miles Kennedy, a voice of the 21st century, allegedly. It was his birthday recently, of course. We stuck that on the Facebook page. Richie Kotzen, the mighty Richie Kotzen from, all manner of bands. Winery Dogs with Kotzen. Poison.
Yeah.
And of course, Mr. Big, I think he was in.
He was.
Plays without a pick, right? You can play the guitar, not very well, of course, as we all know, but you play with some sort of plastic pick, don't you? I guess.
Yes.
But he plays with his fingers, isn't he? An amazing guitarist.
Yeah.
Richie Kotzen. Kasabian, you saw them recently on your trip.
They were really good. I was quite surprised how it was bizarre seeing a band that's headlined Glastonbury. They headlined Glastonbury, and I saw them in the Webster Hall, which effectively is a club that holds 1,400 people. And Kasabian were the lead guitarist is now the lead singer, Serge. Serge went to the bar. He went,
right?
Yeah, he went to the bar, stood at the bar, and he was actually genuinely he ordered drinks for the band on the stage, and then he was asking a few people if do you fancy a drink, mate? Do you fancy a drink?
Brilliant.
And then he went all Peter. Then he went all sort of Steve Hogarth, Peter Gabriel with kind of neon hands, so it lasers coming out of a pair of gloves. Honestly, man, it was just, I'm kind of going, this is mad. It was honestly great band, Kasabian. Great band.
Well worthy of the case. Karma Effect, of course, our old friends.
Yeah.
Have a listen to the interview if you haven't listened to it. They were great guys, Liam and Ash. Hello, guys, if you're listening. Of course, in the tour bus, still on the UK tour. Who else we got? KK's Priest.
Yeah.
The offshoot from Judas Priest, the mighty KK Downing. King, well worth a mention.
Yes.
Amazing band. Amazing. Bluesy kind of undertone, but fantastic. Anglo-Scottish band, I suppose you could say. The mighty King. I've got to mention this one from my daughter's boyfriend, my daughter Georgia, her boyfriend Jay. He keeps saying to me, "You got to listen to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. You got to listen to them. They're great. Listen to them. So one day I will listen to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. But there's King everything, isn't there, Brian?
Well, there is.
Kings of Leon.
Yep, Kings of Leon. You've got Kerry King, who was the
King.
Yes, for Slayer, and I think he's going out solo now as Kerry King, but nobody's sure who's actually in the band yet.
Okay.
I've got Dave King. Do you remember Dave King?
I do.
Ah.
And one of the you're testing me again, I can tell. He, I think, was the original singer of Wasted.
No, you're close though.
Dave King. All right, where was he then?
Dave King was the original singer in Fastway.
I was close.
With Pete Way and Fast Eddie Clark.
That's right.
Way. So
yes. I'm with you. I got that at the time. Yeah.
But bizarrely, whenever Fast Way came out, and we're all expecting to see Pete Way and Fast Eddie Clark on the video, there was no Pete Way because he'd recorded the album and then I think he'd buggered off back to UFO. So there you've got Dave King, Kerry King, King Diamond.
Yes.
Who is like from Merciful Fate, who are massive.
They were always in Kerrang, weren't they?
Yes.
Every week.
I was scared of him.
I still am.
and to hear him when you watch those the documentaries about the history of heavy metal, he's singing up in areas where only dogs can hear you. It's
is that ridiculous?
Oh my goodness. King Crimson.
We'll put some Merciful Fate and King Diamond on the playlist. That'll sort the men from the boys from the girls, and all that sort of stuff.
Oh my goodness!
So King Crimson, of course, amazing band.
King Crimson, documentary coming out soon. About obviously Robert Fripp at the moment, who's enjoying a new lease of life as Toya Wilcox.
He's enjoying Toya.
Husband.
Yes, indeed. Oh dear! I think that's it. We've sort of have we done K to death?
I think we've done K to death. We've done K to death.
The main thing is we got to it. We covered King's X. We're all good. The world. Everything's okay with the world now.
It is indeed. It is. I'll maybe try and sneak them in at X.
Why not? Well, there might be Slim Pickings in X. I can tell you. So that brings us finally here, boys and girls, to everyone's favourite part of the podcast.
Hidden Gem Time.
Oh, thanks, Lola. Sounding great. As always. Hope you're doing well. Right, Brian, what you got for us?
Matt, I feel that this episode has been one of the most eclectic episodes that we've done in our 57 episode history. We've covered Dolly Parton.
Yes.
Killing Joke. Oh
yes.
my! We've Kiss. Oh my goodness!
True.
We've covered lots of different genres. Merciful Fate.
Yeah, I know.
So
amazing.
I'm going to expand our genre, and for my hidden gem, this is something I watched a couple of weekends ago, and I watched it on Apple TV. And it is a live documentary film which was directed and written by Spike Jonze. And it's a film called Beastie Boys Story. Now, it's effectively a live show with Michael Diamond and Adam Horovitz. So it's the two remaining members of the Beastie Boys. So Adam Yoik, who sadly passed away, he succumbed to cancer, and it's effectively a staged story, just a telling of the 40-year history of the Beastie Boys. Now, for those of us who come in and out of the Beastie Boys, we'll always remember the License to Ill album, Matt, where you've got, you've got to fight for your right to party, all that kind of stuff, and Rick Rubin and Def Jam Records, and the connections that the Beastie Boys had with Run DMC. Them coming across to I remember them coming across to Great Britain, and they were debated in Parliament about how lewd.
That's right.
Because they had big massive symbols, and they basically said, what do you want on your stage? And they basically come up with outlandish stuff. And because they were a headline act, they got it all. So they were banned in the UK. But what's really interesting is throughout the story of the two guys who remain, who are still with us, the friendship of the three of them, and Adam Yoik, who was the bass player, and he was coming up with some outlandishly innovative ideas around the Beastie Boys. And it's honestly, Matt, you just go through their history of 40 years, and you've effectively got three best friends who for many, many years just made the music that they loved. They didn't follow any genres. Like, one of my favourite tracks of the Beastie Boys is a song called Sabotage.
Oh, amazing song.
It's a fabulous, and that came out of a jam where Adam's playing the bass, and then they move into areas where they freed Tibet, and they were able to call on Dave Grohl and Rage Against the Machine. So they're such an influential band, but it's a really powerful documentary about a band. And I know it's not hard rock or classic rock, but if you get a chance to watch Beastie Boys' story, it is just a really, really interesting insight around how a band starts, how they can keep going, and how sometimes bands are just luckily three best friends who go through a career together. So my hidden gem for this episode is Beastie Boys' story.
Very good. Very good. I think that's the first time we mentioned the Beastie Boys on for those about the pod recently. And yeah, what a band! I mean, fantastic. That's a great shout, Brian. We'll put again a load of classic Beastie Boys on the playlist. So from the Beastie Boys, I'm going to go back to late 80s British goth, and I'm going to create a new genre, Brian. Another one. For the collection.
It's a different day of the week now, is it?
Same day of the week, still Sunday. This is going to be, so it's Sunday Morning Goth with Matt Rogers, and I present to you the debut album from All About Eve. Now, All About Eve, and the reason I came across this, I knew All About Eve from the late 80s, fronted by Julianne Regan, who was one of those kind of female sort of figureheads of the goth movement in the late 80s. I was listening to the radio, and they played, when radio stations, Planet Rock specifically, they played a song from this album. You think, hang on a minute, I haven't heard that since, 1988 in this case. It was Every Angel from the debut album from All About Eve. And it's called All About Eve. Simple as that, named after a 1951 film of the same name. And it's great. I listened to it that day, and it brought back a lot of memories. Martha's Harbour. A lot of people remember their doomed...
Oh, the Top of the Pops performance. Oh, my goodness.
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly. Which was a kind of blessing in disguise, because they did the song. We could hear them. They could hear the song on the, if you like, listening at home, but in the studio they couldn't hear it. They played it again the next week. It rocketed up the charts. Everyone was happy. Every Angel I mentioned, Shelter from the Rain, and so on. It's a nice mellow album. Julianne Regan's voice is beautiful. Tim Braccino, his guitar playing is fantastic. I think he went on to join the Mission or the Sisters of Mercy, one of those bands. He was kind of one of those ubiquitous guitar players in that era. But so there you go. So I'm going to surprise everyone with my selection of hidden gem this time, coining the phrase Sunday Morning Goth. The debut album from All About Eve, called All About Eve.
Fabulous.
There you go. Right, that's it, Bri.
That's it.
It's quite sad, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Episode 57, we've got to wait another 3 weeks, but we do episode 58. And I'll talk about Planet Rockstock next time.
Yep.
Which I haven't had a chance to talk about today. It was great last weekend. But I shall cover that next time. But thanks for listening, everyone. Check us out on Facebook. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm going to get serious now. Mm-hmm. And tell your friends, tell your neighbours, tell complete strangers. I do, as you know, Brian. I'm always accosting complete strangers, telling them about the podcast. Give me funny looks and then walk away. But worth a try. We'll see you next time.
You will do. And for those people who are, doing their Spotify Wrapped, if we are one of your top podcasts, thank you so much for listening to us in 2023.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yep. Do you know where I had us, Matt? On my top podcasts of 2023, I had us third.
What?
I know.
Mind you,
That's
it's a
good.
bit self-indulgent to listen to yourself, isn't it? You know. Yes, I was probably the same actually. I know my daughter Georgia. She sent me hers, and I think we were second. I've got to mention my other daughter Olivia, of course. Got to mention my wife Kate. Got to mention the dog. You know what it's like. Got to mention everyone really.
Exactly.
Sam, my stepson, and so on. Anyway, where were we?
So are you looking for Christmas presents now?
always on the hunt for Christmas presents, Bri.
Yes, and also as well too. Yes, as Matt says, you'll find us on all of the normal social channels. But for those of you who are more traditional in your listening habits, you'll catch us on Scotland Rocks Radio every 3 weeks on a Tuesday. So listen to us there. But until the next time, we will see you. Take care. See you, Matt.
Bye. First Bad Pod, we salute you, is a Manny Rogers production.